right, welcome everybody back to another episode of the Big Doug and Carmi Show, your one-stop shop for all things Commanders. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure that you hit the like button and subscribe. That way you never miss an episode like today's episode with my good buddy House. What is happening?
Big Dog, I am so happy. You know, it took a little bit here to get my feet back under me after the NBA season. It just went forever, my friend. 7 games, NBA Finals, and then we went right into the NBA draft. But we got a little bit of a week off, and now it's time to focus on football. It's right around the corner, my man.
It is, and before we get to football, though, I want to talk a little bit about the basketball. Is it insane they can replay Summer League? Like, this is what has me a hard time with basketball, right? The season just ended, and 2-3 weeks later, we're going to be back to Summer League. Is it too much for you? Like, to me, like the second aprons. Basketball has become difficult to follow for me the last couple of years. I'm not a business finance man. I don't know what second aprons are. I get so confused now. What has happened to the sport that I love?
Yeah, I'll say this. You don't really have to go take a math class to follow along with the NBA. The second apron, all that means is they have a hard salary cap in the NBA, and you don't want to be in that hard salary cap situation. Most of the teams are not. It really only applies to 2 or 3 or 4 teams at the tippy top of the league that had to spend money to build up a nucleus and try to keep the core together. But the basic impact of the current collective bargaining agreement is that there really won't be dynasties. It doesn't seem like. We are now on a 2 to 3 year cycle. You'll get these little mini windows, and the real test of this will be that Oklahoma City Thunder team that just won the chip. They have a bunch of young guys. They have only one guy on a mega contract, but they have 3 guys coming up for contracts, and they position themselves to operate inside of this hard salary cap and have this youthful nucleus. And they'll have to spend money on Chet Holmgren. They have to spend money on J-Dub, Jalen Williams, and they'll have to make a decision about what they want to do with Lou Dort. But they signed SGA to a great extension. That's the kind of new model. It's basically like a 3-year micro window of success, unless you get really lucky with replenishing with young draft picks. And in this way, it's not that dissimilar from the NFL, where the single most advantageous position to be in, and we'll just knock on wood right now, is to get a tremendous quarterback in the draft in the NFL and then build a team immediately as quickly as possible to maximize that early window when that contract for that quarterback is still manageable. The same is true now in the NBA. You try and have young guys on their rookie contracts, perform as well as possible. And the Thunder did it. They pulled it off. And then pay what you have to pay, try and keep it together, but then the whole thing's going to flip again because it's just not affordable anymore with the hard cap. But that's a long-winded way to say you can still follow the NBA. You just got to pay attention to the teams that are good, and it's only about a 2 to 3 year cycle.
You mentioned Oklahoma City Thunder. Obviously, that's the group that's in Washington now. How good do you feel about the rebuild that they're doing? I mean, tough they didn't get the slot in the draft they wanted this year, but I like the guy that they got. And it feels like it's funny. We talk about the same thing with the Commanders. There was a long time they just collected players. Feels like that's kind of what happened with the Wiz. Now it feels like they have a direction and they're building a team.
Yeah, there's this current decision-making group. It is, I think, without hyperbole, the best group of decision makers of the last 30 years, I'll say. And you might even be able to go further back because, as a reminder, I don't mean this in a way to put anybody in a bad mood, the Washington Bullets / Wizards have not won 50 games since 1979. They haven't won. They haven't been in an Eastern Conference Finals in that same period of time. So it's been a minute, Big Dog, since this team, with proper team building. But you mentioned the legacy, the credentials of the current decision making group. It's Will Dawkins and Michael Winger, both of whom come from situations that, with the Clippers, with Winger and Dawkins from Oklahoma City, and they both had connections to Oklahoma City and Presti in terms of team building. The Washington Wizards right now, as we sit here, have 8 players 21 years old or younger from the last 3 drafts. They're all 8 of those players are first-round draft picks from the last 3 drafts, and then the addition of Cam Whitmore really made me go in and take a look at this. This was a trade that the Wizards just pulled off for a player that they were slotted to take in the 2023 draft. The mocks all had Whitmore coming to Washington, and I honestly I loved Whitmore then, and I love him still now. The kid from Villanova, also a DMV native. But yep. the team building concept for Washington, this is how you do it. First round draft picks, as many as you can accumulate, see what you got, see what kids rise above, try and form a young nucleus while the contracts are still manageable, right? They have veteran contracts, they have guys that they're paying, but that's really in the form of mentorship. And really those are assets. That's currency in the current NBA. Those guys, Malcolm Brogdon and Chris Middleton and Marcus Smart and CJ McCollum, those guys might not all be here come February. Half of those guys will be gone for sure by February, I would expect. But the idea is that those are assets to be flipped into additional picks or flipped into additional young players. And you really try and just, build a nucleus of 3 or 4 guys that have potential. Koulibaly looks like he's on the right path. Even though Alex Sarr showed some, growing pains early in the season, he was rookie of the month a couple times in the latter part of the season, and he was in the top 5 for rookie of the year. He showed some promise. It's just a very young team, and this is the modern era of team building in the NBA. So I'm endorsing this Washington Wizards direction.
Which team gets a championship first? House, the Wizards or Commanders?
Wow. Well, look, I just say the Wizards haven't won 50 games. Let's get 50 wins first. And we don't have the super duper. I feel like I need to pinch myself or knock on wood every time we talk about Jaden Daniels because of who he is right now and what his potential is, and how infrequent it's been for us here in the DMV as Washington sports fans to have those kinds of talents. Now you could point to different moments in the history of Washington sports and recent times. We've had some excellent. Ovi will always go down as a legend, and he did deliver that one Stanley Cup. Obviously Steven Strasburg and Bryce Harper. Strasburg was here for the World Series. Harper was not. That was his decision. Good luck getting back there, big boy. But we could go for the Wizards. We don't have that guy right now that we know is going to be the transcendent talent. On the football side, we have it. And by the way, that football team played in the NFC Championship game last year. So the answer has to be the Commanders. Has to be the Commanders, big dog.
It was interesting how last year with Jaden Daniels, it felt like that second half of the season, he picked the team up and put him on his back and drug them to that NFC Championship game in a way that we were talking basketball. It feels like one of those superstars in basketball can do it. You can see that, gets hot, can pick a team up and go. But in football, you never see it like that. And he did it last year, man. Imagine that team without Jaden Daniels on it last year.
Well, you don't see it out of a rookie quarterback. That's the thing. That's what really, what was the eye opener. And there was some early in the season indications that we were seeing something special, but we didn't. I wouldn't dare, even at any point in the season, allow myself to indulge the fantasy that football team, especially with that defense, which over the course of the season, it was a bend don't break, was the best version of that defense. But with that man number 5 at quarterback, it changed the ceiling, and it changed the ceiling right in front of our eyes. And again, I wouldn't allow myself to see it. I wouldn't allow myself to believe it. I thought that we would go down to Tampa and have a great playoff game against the Bucks, and I thought that it was a decent 50-50 that we would, maybe come out of there with a W. And man, that was going to be a hell of a season. That was going to be a season where I said, boy, I can't wait for the future. But what that team did, what Five did, and honestly, let's give credit where it's due. That defense was up to it. What that defense did in Detroit go against a team that all the smart people, and I don't include myself in this, even though I did like Detroit last year as well, going to the NFC Championship game and possibly the Super Bowl. And I don't think folks were wrong. Detroit, suffered debilitating injuries on defense, but to go into Detroit, this Washington team, and take it from them in their home stadium. Ooh, I had to go up to Philadelphia. You know this, big dog. I went up to Philadelphia for the NFC Championship game because it had been 34 years. And I said, I can't wait another 34 years. I might not be here. You know what I mean?
And how was it?
Amazing.
I mean, we know the outcome, but how was it up there?
Well, how about this? The outcome was, it was a very competitive game through halfway through the third quarter. I mean, at some point, those turnovers do catch up to you, and I don't think it's like a big surprise that like a couple of those turnovers, those guys are not going to be in the same position that they were in last. Browns moved on. I don't think it's a big shock. Yeah. But I mean, just remind everybody that game was within a score halfway through the third quarter, and then you turn over, and that was kind of it. And the fourth quarter was downhill. But I say Philadelphia, the time to go to a game and walk around is at the beginning. The tailgate was very friendly. I was out there for about 3 hours now. I was not wearing giant, W's. I wasn't going full dub every which way, but there was a big contingent of Washington fans there, and people were cool. The moment where you did not want to be wearing anything showing any kind of Washington colors or flavor was after the game, because by that point, the entire stadium was well lubricated. You just wanted to get out of there, get into your vehicle, and get out.
They made it. I mean, there's only one more game to play last year before they get to the Super Bowl. It's one of those seasons that will be hard to duplicate. And yet, the fan base has a certain expectation at this point because they got a little taste last year. What should we make of how to react to this season? Because we know what we want, but it is so hard to get there, House.
Yeah, it's impossible. And that was really a once in a lifetime kind of situation. It doesn't mean that they can't win 12 games again this season. I am not saying that, but the convergence of events, the thing that feels extremely unlikely to be repeated in this upcoming season, is the success on fourth down. Yeah. In the history of modern football, no team has had the level of success on fourth down that Washington had. 87% is unheard of. The next closest was 81% from the 2018 Saints, and Washington went for it on a frequency that far outpaced that Saints team. It is part of the Washington DNA. It is part of this Dan Quinn, Cliff Kingsbury coaching staff, their philosophy that the team is going to be aggressive on third down, on fourth down. We are playing, I'm saying I feel it. We are playing 4-down series on offense, but it's very unlikely that level of success on offense is replicable. The team did exactly what you would ask it to do, which is protect number 5. The team understands, Adam Peters and all of the decision makers up and down understand, by far the most important thing to do is keep 5 upright. If 5 is upright and he can play, 16 of 17 games and then be relatively healthy into the playoffs, there's no reason to not have high hopes and think that the ceiling can be as high as last year. The schedule is tougher. Teams now have a full season of tape on Daniels. The secondary is still not good. We don't have an edge rusher still of any particular note. So the defense remains a work in progress. And I think that 10 or 11 wins to me remains a tremendous achievement in the sophomore season for Jaden Daniels. And you know, I think there is some comp. Now I'll knock on wood. I think this Washington offense is more dynamic than the Houston offense, but I do think it's reasonable to look at what Houston went through with CJ Stroud last season, where they still won their division. They still got to 10 wins. They still won a playoff game, but folks were somewhat disappointed because they weren't as electric on offense. I'm talking about the Houston Texans.
They said he had a slump.
Right. They said he had. Now they did have catastrophic injuries in their receiving core. You know,
the playoffs.
And they made the playoffs and they won a playoff game. So I would, you know, again, that's my hope. As far as my optimism, that's the direction I'm headed, Doug.
I've said this a bunch of if they can get 10, 11 wins next year, make the playoffs, I'll take that slump any day. And the idea that the league will have a year of tape. You see this all the time too, right? The league got a year of tape on Cliff and Jaden Daniels. Well, I'd suggest that by bringing in Tunsil, by bringing in Deebo Samuels, by drafting the kid out of Oregon, by being able to then move your guy over to guard, I think there's a lot of the playbook that they threw out last year because they couldn't keep five enough time in the pocket. The offense could look the same, but with much more dynamic features to it. I totally think that.
You beat me to the punch. That word, dynamic, that is exactly what springs to mind. There's a dynamism to the personnel on this defense, this offense, this set of folks that didn't apply to last season. Reminder, the team went out into free agency and was number 5 in the entire league in the money that they spent in free agent acquisitions because the ownership group and the decision makers that they put in place said, you know what, we have a blank slate. Let's start from scratch. Let's see if we can create an identity with this group, with this brand new quarterback. And just see. Let's see if we get Zach Ertz, if we get Austin Eckler, if we get some guys that have been around a little bit that can show some leadership. I mean, Bobby Wagner, Frankie Loup on the defensive side, setting a tone for the team. But on offense, I honestly think we just kind of scratched the surface. We let Cliff Kingsbury have a say in what kind of personnel to acquire for this coming season. Ooh, and Deebo feels like the perfect fit, and we got him at the perfect time. The entire league is down on him. I'm sure your timeline was as filled up as my timeline with pictures. They might have been,
Fat Deebo.
Fat Deebo. It was like all of for a day and a half. All I got were Fat Deebo tweets directed my way. Let's see. Let's see when the ball gets kicked off week 1, what kind of shape that man is in and what kind of position he's put in this offense. But I totally agree with you in terms of the idea that this iteration of the offense should be more dynamic than last season.
And to get everybody back, I mean, not just to get Cliff back, but they got the quarterback coach back. They got, the offensive line coach is back. The running back coach and Anthony Lynn is back. Like, the whole band is back together again. So at no point, Marcus Mariota is back. So it's like on offense, at no point are you starting over again. You're just building on what you did before. And Deebo's got the tape. He's got the books. Now he's getting used and ready to go. And if Tunsil's anywhere close to being a top 5 guy, top 6 guy, and I think he's close to the top 3 guy, I mean, this is a far cry from the Commanders teams that were hoping to outskate people 18-19.
Right.
I mean, this team's ready to run to 40. And that's what I like.
No doubt about it. I mean, a teeny tiny small thing, as you were describing, the way that they were successful in bringing back all of that coaching staff. Wes Welker, how about him?
Yeah,
who he has a relationship with? Deebo. Well, for sure, Kingsbury. Those guys go way back. But you go look and see when Debo had his most successful seasons, Wes Welker was on that coaching staff under Kyle Shanahan, and Wes Welker and Debo have a relationship. The whole idea of making this a comfortable place for Debo wants to go win that bag. This is a contract season for him. He wants to show everybody that he deserves, and I think that Kingsbury, the concept for this offense is going to have him out of harm's way in a manner that I believe in the last 2 years impacted his performance on the field, because Shanahan, this isn't a knock on Shanahan. He was trying to maximize, what Debo represented to that offense. It just ended up in a lot of mileage on Debo and putting Debo in harm's way. He is not going to have that same target on him in this offense, Doug.
Yeah, well, without Debo, the room looks pretty soft. And I wonder, as we're sitting here waiting for a McLaurin extension, I wonder if McLaurin's people also have looked at the wide receiver room and said, you know what? The room looks pretty bad without Terry. Maybe that's worth a couple extra million here, because they shouldn't be that far apart. You look at Pickens at 30. You look at DK Metcalf at 34. I'm assuming he wants something similar.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And you're right. There's no such thing as Jayden Daniels without Terry McLaurin. Yeah. I mean, there is no world in which we are going to
Noah Brown is wide receiver 1 in the offense if Terry's not back.
Yeah. Noah Brown, very good. And I'm eager to let's see what we can really, let's see what he can do. But yes, I mean, they're going to get a deal done.
Yes.
Terry deserves it. The leadership role that he took last season, over the course of the season, we finally got to see and hear Terry McLaurin with a voice. It had been his reputation inside that locker room of being a leader, but the man found his voice over the course of the season. And because of the success, there was an interest in let's see that Washington locker room. Let's see them celebrating. And we would see Terry in there, leading some of that. And that more than anything, first of all, the trusted relationship between him and number 5. And we saw it in that Bengals game. Like, that's what we, very early in the season, the Monday night game, that it will always be an iconic throw and catch in the career of Jayden Daniels, and hopefully in the career of Terry McLaurin, that those two, that synergy, it showed itself very early. They revealed on a national stage to the entire NFL the announcement of Washington as a legitimate franchise. And again, I'm just going to knock on wood. I really, after the previous 25 years, Doug, I really feel like you just got to, my enthusiasm is unbridled, but I just catch myself getting crazy, and I just want to calm down a little bit. You understand it.
I do understand it very well. It's interesting. You talk about the play against the Bengals, and I'm thinking about the touchdown catch Terry had against the Cowboys. And of course, we know what happens next. It doesn't count for one of those great hurrahs, because he mixes the extra point afterwards, and they lose that one. You remember that was supposed to be
that was going highlight. To be I mean, in retrospect now, we look back, we can kind of laugh about it, because we won enough of those kinds of games. We literally won a Hail Mary game. The Washington Commanders in 2024. The crazy thing, and this again, I'll knock on wood, Washington lost only one game by more than one score the entirety of the 2024-25 season, and that was their season opener against Tampa. The very first game that Jayden Daniels played in his NFL career. It was the only game thus far on his resume where the team that he led lost by more than one score. Let's keep that going, because that's a testament to some of the things we've covered already, which is they're going for it. They're aggressive. They're going to be in every game. I mean, even that Baltimore game early on, the first half of the season when they went up against the Ravens, everybody was like, by that point, folks had seen Jayden a little bit, like, this is going to be pretty good. Washington was there. They were not like, oh, this is, big brother, little brother. Washington was in that mix. And that was last season, one of those sort of like, referendum games. We're kind of we want to sort of measure ourselves, a measurement game. And it gave me great enthusiasm and encouragement. But this whole upcoming schedule, Doug, We got a whole season worth of those.
I know. I've looked at this. I'm not as down on the schedule as some people. I've looked through here. I could see a path, like we talked about earlier. I can see a path to 10 or 11, and then you flip a couple coins for it. I was looking at, we've been talking about all the great success from last year. It was always amazing to me. We would always see posts by your buddy Warren Sharp, and they would be awful for the Commanders. You know what I mean? Like, just go down to the bottom of the list, and there we were. To see how many of those things we were at the top of this year, I was like, what world are we living in here?
That's right. I mean, this is the world, though. This is in a way, we were sort of having this conversation around the modern NBA. This is the modern NFL, where you can reinvent yourself in all of 12 months if you have conviction and you have good decision makers. And so this is a place where I give first credit to Josh Harris and the ownership group for arriving into football and saying, okay, we're smart guys. They believe they're smart guys, our ownership group. They've achieved some things in their lives. They put them in a position to spend $6 billion on a team, but they did a great job at all of the levels of decision makers and letting those decision makers go ahead and make decisions. But the most important thing is they turned over the keys in a way where, if you had said coming into last season, this team is going to spend nearly $180 million in the free agency market, where it hadn't spent anywhere near that in 20 some years, and that it was going to lead to a level of success, that it was going to create for the brand new quarterback, the new franchise quarterback, a safe landing environment. And you understand that, in the forecast, including our buddy Warren Sharp, his book last year had the Washington offensive line as one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL. And I'm not picking on Sharpie. Everybody forecast that Washington offensive line to be one of the worst in the league. It turned out not to be. And it turned out not to be because some of those guys, Allegretti and Cosme and Bidas, they performed at a level that was unexpected. But scheme wise, what Kingsbury was doing created protection for the quarterback and put those guys in their best possible kind of situation. And so that's why I'm bullish on the additions to the offensive line, because I think that the Kingsbury scheme creates a place where offensive linemen like the scheme and are able to have success inside of the scheme. And that's why when you're talking about the flip, when you go up and down the charts of what the forecast for what this Washington team is capable of, for the first time in 20 plus years, the forecast is bullish. The forecast is, this team showed us some stuff last season. Some of it's probably not replicable. The fourth down efficiency, probably not replicable. Is it sustainable to lose only one game by more than one score? That time will tell. Which way do you want to think about the defense? Was it glass half full or glass half empty? Because the defense, you can't point to anything and say this is a market improvement. I do like the personnel in the secondary. I do think that there is room for improvement yet in the secondary. But I don't know. It's a great unknown. But I do like, the forecast is 3 full games better than last year. Now, last year, Washington was the first to get to its win total in the entire NFL, because everybody predicted the number was 6.5 and they got to 7 by week 9. Let's see how many weeks it takes to get to 10. Let's just say leave it at that.
Did you take the over last year?
Of course, yes. No, I mean, it was just because the idea of 7 and 10 with a team that had won 5 the previous year and the improvement at quarterback. It was, I didn't oversubscribe. I did not bet a mortgage payment on it, but I did think that it was reasonable to get to 7 wins.
You're a lifelong Washingtonian. Where do you stand on the RFK site?
I can't wait for it to be transformed into what it's going to be transformed into. I don't think that there is, I mean, anything's possible, but at the end of the day, what the team has done in terms of recognizing the historical significance of that site, the site, what it means to that portion of the city, the revitalization that's occurred all the way from Buzzards Point to Navy Yard, and if you want to track all the way along that riverfront, you can connect the RFK site to that, all the way to that Buzzards Point site where the soccer stadium is, and create and revitalize that portion of the city. And the commitment that the team has made to housing in the area, that you know, there is a recognition that they're not going to walk in there and put in a facility that's used 8 or 9 times a year and then is dormant with giant empty parking lots otherwise, and claim that there's a great economic boost to that portion of the city. They're not doing that. And so I'm, you know, I think the combination of all of the land that they're asking to get their hands on being converted into public use, the parks, the kids emphasized elements of it, the green space, there's a lot of green space. They're not putting up giant parking lots, and then the combination of housing and retail, and just making that portion of the city where you can sit in that stadium and look and see the nation's capital. And if you're lucky, see above the Capitol, the Washington Monument. It's a one of one, and it deserves the world-class kind of treatment that I think this ownership group is committed to delivering. And so, I mean, I feel like I'm out here. Nobody's paying me to be proselytizing like this, big dog. But I think that they have a vision. They've been around. These are native Washingtonians themselves, native DMVs, you know, themselves. And the opportunity is just too ripe to mess it up. So I think it's going to get there, and I think it's going to be magnificent.
DC has more trees per acre than any other major city in the country. I wouldn't have guessed that. There you go. There's a free tidbit for you.
Going through Rock Creek Park, it's always, it's very lush. It's a unique place. It's wonderful.
That's right. Have you been keeping up with Cakes at the World Series of Poker?
I've been doing my best. I'm on his Twitter feed. Now he's not letting us live hand by hand. It's probably for the best because the man needs to focus. But here, I couldn't be more proud that this amazing run by our own sport junkie Cakes, and you know, he's always been devoted proponent of the poker game, and his relationship with it's the MGM folks. Is that where he tends to, he does his games out of there? And he's always like, come. He wants people to play. And you know, he built up, correct me if I'm wrong, he got his own little syndicate to stake him here. He's into day 3. Yeah. That is like not chump change, Big Doug.
Yeah, Pacers Run is one that sponsored him, and a couple other people put up some, and I know they sold stakes. But yeah, I've been doing a live sweat with him the whole time. It's been fantastic. Between his the people trying to sell him Coke on the sidewalk and hookers at the bar, I'm not sure what's more exciting, the poker or the after events there. I'll tell you what, 276,500 chips he ended with last night is not doing bad.
Yeah, I'll confess, I got a little nervous. He showed one picture of a stack, and it was a sad stack. It was not a big stack, but man, he definitely. You told me he doubled up on one big pot, and here we are, man. We're in. Let's just keep him rolling.
I love it. How long have you been with the Ringer now?
Since its existence, since it came into existence.
You and Bill Simmons were roommates, right? Am I right on that?
We were like 2 doors down, but okay. You know, functional equivalent. Yeah.
Yeah. What did those poker contests look like?
Not nearly as serious as this. And you know, that the group, you know, cards were obviously a big part of our lives there. I won't say from what era, because I feel like, you know, it gets to be old man. But, you know, a lot of pinochle and a lot of whist, those 5-card games, you know, where you could really get aggressive with people. Those were the games of choice. You know, basically our version sitting in the hall at 2 a.m. of the NBA guys playing bourrée on the plains. Same proposition. You understand. Nobody had the patience for poker back then. It had to be these little 5-card games, pinochle and whist. You know what I mean?
Dude, when Chris Baker was on the show with me for about a year, he would tell me about some of those bourrée games that they did on the plane back from Redskins games with Santana Moss and crew.
Yeah.
Let's just say that you were talking about mortgage payments earlier. Like that was how those guys got started in that game. Oh, Joe, thank you, man. I always love doing this, and usually Cakes is on here with us. I think me, you, and Cakes is on about 4 of these now. So
yeah, we got EB on a couple of them too.
That's
I mean,
right.
anytime you want to mess me up with a junkie, I do it. I try to invite myself on those boys' show as much as they'll have me. They give me like once a quarter or so. I'm allowed to go on there and rant like a crazy person. But man, it's a great moment to be a Washington fan, even with the baseball team. I mean, I know the baseball team just went through a renovation with their ownership, and but look, I mean, the decision makers. Yeah. But when you have all the dynamism that is there on that offensive side, if we just get a little bit of a bullpen here in Washington, and maybe whoever the next general manager is will have permission to spend some money on a bullpen. The offensive side, because James Wood is the realest of real deals. I can't wait. His jersey is going to have to wait because I have to get the House jersey first. My man Brady House had his best game in his entire major league career Sunday against the Red Sox. So I got to get a House jersey, but then James Wood's right behind it because he is the realest of real deals.
Now, see, my grandparents were from Athens, Georgia. At least they retired in Athens, Georgia. So I am this is where we end the friendship house.
You're a Braves fan.
I am a Braves guy.
You're a Braves fan. Okay.
That's the same reason I'm a Georgia Bulldog guy. There were no teams in the district.
I understand.
So, a lot of people were O's fans, but no, we grew up Braves fans. So.
Okay, you're allowed
in the division. We got a couple of hitters too.
Yeah. I've heard that about those Braves.
All right, buddy. I'll holler at you. Thank you, buddy.
Always. Big dog, you call, I answer. Appreciate it.